What if I told you that artificial intelligence just solved a 15-year-old mystery that stumped every expert? 3 generations of the Morrison family vanished without a trace in the Colorado wilderness. No bodies, no evidence, no explanation, until ChatGPT decoded symbols carved into ancient stones that revealed something so impossible it challenges everything we know about reality itself. The Morrison case isn't just another missing person story. It's proof that some mysteries are so complex they require technology that didn't exist when they happened. What the AI discovered about dimensional gateways and parallel frequencies will change everything you think you know about disappearances. This isn't science fiction, this is documented fact. Before we dive into this investigation that spans decades and dimensions, hit that subscribe button because cases like this don't come often, and you won't want to miss what happens next. What you're about to hear will question the very nature of our reality. I've been investigating disappearances for over 2 decades, working on cases that have baffled law enforcement agencies across North America. I've seen families torn apart by unsolved mysteries, witnessed evidence that defies logical explanation, and walked through crime scenes that challenge everything I thought I knew about human behavior. But nothing in my career prepared me for the Morrison case. A mystery so profound that it required artificial intelligence to unlock secrets that human experts couldn't solve for 15 years. 3 generations of one family, grandparents Robert and Ellen Morrison, their son Michael with wife Sarah, and 2 young children, Emma and Jake, all vanished simultaneously during a family reunion in the remote Colorado Rockies. What makes this case extraordinary isn't just the impossible circumstances of their disappearance, the complete absence of any physical evidence, or even the bizarre behavior of electronic equipment in the area afterward. What makes this case unprecedented is how artificial intelligence recently cracked an ancient code carved in stone that revealed the family may have discovered something that shouldn't exist, according to our understanding of physics. The Morrison family had rented a secluded cabin near Pike National Forest for their annual summer gathering, a tradition they'd maintained for over a decade. Robert Morrison, 72, was a retired geology professor from the University of Colorado who had spent his entire career studying the geological formations of the Rocky Mountain region. His passion for rocks and minerals was infectious, and he loved nothing more than sharing his discoveries with his family during these mountain retreats. Ellen, 68, was the family's unofficial historian and organizer, who meticulously documented every family event with photographs and detailed notes in her leather-bound journals. Their son, Michael, 45, worked as an environmental engineer for a consulting firm in Denver. He had inherited his father's love of the outdoors and scientific curiosity about natural phenomena. His wife, Sarah, 43, taught 3rd grade at an elementary school in suburban Colorado Springs. She was known for her nurturing personality and her ability to make any space feel like home. The children, Emma, 8, and Jake, 6, were city kids excited about their first real camping adventure away from video games and structured activities. Emma showed early signs of inheriting the family's scientific interests, while Jake was fascinated by stories and legends about mysterious places. The cabin they'd rented sat on 40 acres of pristine wilderness, accessible only by a winding dirt road that twisted through dense pine forests for nearly 8 miles from the nearest paved highway. Cell phone service was completely non-existent in the area, which the family saw as a blessing, a rare opportunity to disconnect from the digital world and reconnect with each other and nature. The nearest neighbor lived 12 miles away across rugged terrain, and the closest town was Pinecliff, a tiny mountain community 40 minutes away down treacherous mountain roads that became impassable during bad weather. What specifically drew the Morrison family to this particular location wasn't just the natural beauty or the promise of solitude. During his geological surveys in the region years earlier, Robert had discovered unusual rock formations scattered throughout the property, massive granite boulders that contained strange symbols carved deep into their surfaces. These symbols didn't match any known Native American petroglyphs, pioneer markings, or modern graffiti that Robert had encountered in his decades of fieldwork. The carvings appeared ancient, yet the precision and depth of the carving technique suggested tools more advanced than anything early indigenous peoples or settlers would have possessed. Robert had photographed these formations during his initial discovery, but had never had the opportunity to study them properly. He was convinced these carvings held significant historical or archaeological value, and he wanted to share this discovery with his family during their vacation. He'd spent weeks before the trip researching similar symbols in archaeological databases and consulting with colleagues in anthropology and linguistics departments, but no one could identify the origin or meaning of the markings. The family arrived on Friday afternoon, July 14, 2009, during what meteorologists would later describe as an unusually clear and stable weather pattern for the season. According to the cabin's guest log, they checked in at exactly 3:47 p.m. without any issues or complaints. The property manager, Maria Santos, a local woman who had been caring for vacation rentals in the area for over 20 years, later told investigators that the Morrisons seemed particularly excited and happy. She remembered Robert immediately asking about hiking trails that would lead to the stone formations he'd discovered years earlier. Maria had warned them about the rugged terrain in that particular area, advising them to stay on marked paths and to be especially careful with young children. The region was known for sudden weather changes, hidden ravines, and wildlife including black bears and mountain lions. The family assured her they were experienced hikers and would exercise appropriate caution. Maria provided them with emergency flares, a detailed topographical map of the property, and her personal cell phone number, though she explained that cell service wouldn't work anywhere on the property. Security cameras at the property entrance recorded the Morrisons' burgundy Ford Explorer arriving at exactly 3:47 p.m. The vehicle appeared to be properly loaded with camping gear, hiking equipment, emergency supplies, and enough food and water for their planned week-long stay. The family appeared relaxed and animated in the footage, with the children visible in the back seat, pointing excitedly at the surrounding forest. This would be the last confirmed sighting of the Morrison family vehicle entering the property. The last verified human contact with the family occurred Saturday morning, July 15th, when Maria Santos spotted them heading into the forest around 9:15 a.m. during her routine morning check of the various properties under her management. She observed the family from a distance of approximately 200 yards as they followed what appeared to be an old deer trail leading toward the interior of the property. Robert carried his professional geological tools, including rock hammers, sample containers, and a high-end digital camera. Ellen had her ever-present notebook and was wearing the small backpack she always carried for family outings. Michael and Sarah appeared to be carrying day packs with water and snacks for what they obviously planned as a moderate day hike. The children were visibly excited, bouncing with energy as they followed their grandfather toward his mysterious rock formations. Emma carried a small collection bag that Robert had given her for gathering interesting mineral specimens, while Jake clutched a field guide to Colorado wildlife that his grandmother had purchased for him. Maria noted that the family appeared well prepared, appropriately dressed for hiking, and in excellent spirits. Saturday evening came and went without the family returning to the cabin. Maria wasn't initially concerned, because guests often lost track of time while exploring the vast wilderness, and families with children sometimes decided to camp under the stars rather than hike back in darkness. The property was designed for self-sufficient guests, and the Morrisons had specifically mentioned their interest in spending time away from civilization. However, when Sunday morning arrived and there was still no sign of the family, Maria decided to check on their welfare. When Maria approached the cabin Sunday morning, she immediately noticed that the building appeared exactly as the family had left it the previous day. Beds were unmade, breakfast dishes from Saturday morning still sat unwashed in the sink, and all their personal belongings remained precisely where they'd been placed. The family's SUV sat undisturbed in the gravel driveway, with keys hanging on the hook inside the front door. Most concerning was the complete absence of any preparation for an overnight camping trip. Sleeping bags, tents, and substantial food supplies remained stored in the cabin. Maria immediately contacted the Pinecliff County Sheriff's Department, reporting what she described as a potentially serious missing person situation. Deputy Sheriff James Whitfield arrived at the property within 90 minutes and began an initial assessment of the scene. Whitfield, a 15-year veteran of mountain rescue operations, immediately recognized the seriousness of the situation. The complete absence of camping gear suggested the family had planned only a day hike, yet they had not returned after nearly 24 hours in wilderness that included numerous natural hazards. Park rangers and additional sheriff's deputies launched a comprehensive search operation that same afternoon, focusing initially on the areas where Robert had mentioned wanting to explore during his conversation with Maria Santos. The terrain was extraordinarily challenging for search operations: steep rocky outcrops, dense undergrowth, hidden ravines, and thick forest canopy that made aerial observation nearly impossible. However, experienced searchers were able to locate and follow the family's initial trail leading into the forest, marked by broken branches, disturbed soil, and occasional footprints in soft ground. The trail was clearly defined for approximately 2 miles, following what appeared to be a combination of established deer paths and routes that someone had used previously, possibly Robert during his earlier geological surveys. Searchers found evidence of the family's passage, including Emma's hair ribbon, caught on a low branch, a partially eaten granola bar wrapper that Sarah always carried, and clear boot prints that matched the hiking shoes Robert had been wearing. The trail seemed to lead directly toward a remote section of the property where topographical maps indicated a cluster of large rock formations. After 2 miles of clearly marked trail, all traces of the Morrison family simply vanished. The searchers arrived at a circular clearing approximately 50 yards in diameter, surrounded by 17 massive granite boulders arranged in what appeared to be a deliberate pattern. Each boulder stood between 8 and 12 feet tall and contained dozens of deeply carved symbols covering their surfaces. But despite intensive examination of the entire clearing and surrounding area, investigators found no footprints, no disturbed vegetation, no dropped items, and no indication of where the family had gone after reaching this location. The investigation expanded rapidly as news of the mysterious disappearance spread throughout Colorado and eventually attracted national attention. FBI agents arrived within 48 hours, treating the case as a potential kidnapping, despite the remote location and absence of any ransom demands or threatening communications. The Bureau brought sophisticated resources including behavioral analysts, forensic specialists, and technical equipment designed for complex outdoor crime scene investigations. Search and rescue teams from across the region volunteered for what became one of the largest missing persons operations in Colorado history. Over 200 professional searchers, volunteers from neighboring communities, and specialized K-9 units participated in systematic grid searches that eventually covered over 300 square miles of wilderness. Helicopters equipped with thermal imaging cameras flew continuous patterns over the search area, while ground teams used metal detectors, ground-penetrating radar, and even experimental scent tracking technology. Despite the massive undertaking involving multiple law enforcement agencies, volunteer organizations, and advanced technology, investigators found absolutely nothing beyond the point where the family's trail ended in the stone circle. No clothing, no equipment, no signs of struggle, no indication of wildlife predation, and no bodies. It was as if the Morrison family had walked into that clearing and simply ceased to exist within our physical reality. What baffled investigators most profoundly was the condition of the clearing itself and the complete absence of any evidence suggesting how 5 people could vanish from such a confined area. The area showed no signs of vehicle access, no tire tracks, no disturbed vegetation that would indicate a large group of people or heavy equipment had accessed the remote location. There were no overhead helicopter landing sites, no hidden caves or crevices large enough to conceal bodies, and no waterways that could have carried away evidence. The stone formations themselves quickly became the central focus of the investigation, as they represented the only unusual elements in an otherwise typical Rocky Mountain forest clearing. FBI analysts, archaeological experts, and linguistics professors from universities across the country were brought in to examine the carved symbols. The initial assessment determined that the carvings were unlike anything in existing academic databases, combining elements that appeared both ancient and strangely modern. The symbols themselves defied easy categorization. Some resembled mathematical equations using notation systems that didn't match any known historical mathematical traditions. Others looked like astronomical charts or star maps, but with celestial configurations that didn't correspond to any known constellation patterns visible from Earth. A few symbols appeared to be technological diagrams, showing what looked like mechanical or electronic schematics, but using symbolic representations that predated modern engineering by centuries. During my involvement in the initial investigation, I spent countless hours studying crime scene photographs of those stone formations. There were exactly 17 granite boulders arranged in what geodetic surveys later confirmed was a mathematically precise pattern based on advanced geometric principles. Each boulder contained between 30 and 50 carved symbols of varying sizes, with the largest symbols positioned at eye level and smaller, more intricate carvings extending both higher and lower on each stone surface. The symbols were carved with remarkable precision, suggesting whoever created them possessed significant skill, sophisticated tools, and substantial time to complete such detailed work. Most intriguingly, forensic analysis revealed that some symbols had been carved over previous carvings, indicating the stones had been used as a canvas for multiple messages across different time periods. Carbon dating of organic material trapped in the carving grooves suggested the oldest symbols could be over 1,000 years old, while the newest appeared to have been carved within the last century. Dr. Rachel Chen, a symbology expert from the University of Colorado who had previously worked on deciphering ancient Maya and Egyptian hieroglyphic texts, spent 3 months conducting detailed analysis of the stone carvings. Her preliminary report noted that the symbols shared structural characteristics with several ancient writing systems, but didn't match any known historical language or mathematical notation. She observed that the precise placement of the 17 stones created sightlines pointing toward specific astronomical features, suggesting the entire formation functioned as some form of celestial observatory or calendar. However, even Dr. Chen's extensive expertise led nowhere concrete. The symbols remained as mysterious as the day they were first discovered, and their potential connection to the Morrison family's disappearance remained purely speculative. As months passed without new developments, the case began to follow the familiar pattern of unsolved mysteries. Media attention gradually faded, search operations were officially suspended, and the Morrison family became another entry in the National Missing Persons database. The case grew cold, filed away as one of Colorado's most perplexing mysteries, alongside other unexplained disappearances in remote wilderness areas. Years passed without any new evidence, witnesses, or credible leads. Robert and Ellen's church in Denver held memorial services, though the family was never officially declared dead due to the absence of bodies or conclusive evidence of their fate. Michael and Sarah's employers established scholarship funds in their memory for students pursuing environmental science and education degrees. Emma and Jake's elementary school planted a memorial garden in their honor, where teachers would often find students sitting quietly, wondering what had happened to their missing classmates. The children's disappearance particularly affected the school community, as young people struggled to understand how an entire family could simply vanish without explanation. Counselors worked with students for months, helping them process the inexplicable loss of their friends. The property where the family disappeared changed ownership several times over the following years. Each new owner heard the story of the mysterious disappearance, and most tried to avoid the area where the stone formation stood. Local legends grew around the site, with some claiming to hear children's laughter echoing through the forest during certain times of the day or night. Others reported seeing shadowy figures moving between the carved stones at dusk, though no physical evidence ever supported these supernatural claims. Whether these stories represented genuine paranormal experiences, the power of suggestion feeding on an already tragic mystery, or simply the way isolated communities process inexplicable events, remained unclear. What was certain was that the site had acquired a reputation that discouraged casual exploration, leaving the stone circle largely undisturbed for years after the initial investigation concluded. I revisited the Morrison case periodically throughout my career, hoping that advances in forensic technology might reveal previously undetected evidence or provide new investigative approaches. DNA analysis technology improved significantly during the years following the disappearance, but repeated testing of the stone circle area yielded no useful genetic material. Ground-penetrating radar became more sophisticated and was used multiple times to search for buried remains, but detected no anomalies beneath the clearing or surrounding forest. Even specialized cadaver dogs were brought to the site several years after the disappearance, when their handlers believed enough time had passed for decomposition to create detectable scent traces. However, the dogs showed no interest in any area within miles of the stone formations, suggesting that the family's remains were not buried anywhere in the region. The Morrison family had vanished as completely as if they had never existed, leaving behind only questions literally carved in stone. The breakthrough that would eventually solve the Morrison mystery came in 2024, 15 years after the disappearance, through a source that no one involved in the original investigation could have anticipated. Dr. Amanda Torres, a computational linguistics researcher at MIT's Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory, had been experimenting with large language models and their ability to recognize patterns in previously undeciphered writing systems and ancient texts. Dr. Torres had achieved remarkable success using ChatGPT and similar AI systems to identify structural patterns in historical documents, archaeological inscriptions, and linguistic puzzles that had stumped human experts for decades. The AI's ability to process vast amounts of data simultaneously, recognize subtle mathematical relationships, and identify patterns across multiple variables made it uniquely suited for tackling complex symbol systems that required interdisciplinary analysis combining linguistics, mathematics, astronomy, and cultural anthropology. When a colleague in the archaeology department suggested applying AI analysis to the Morrison case symbols, Dr. Torres was initially skeptical about whether 15-year-old photographs would provide sufficient detail for meaningful analysis. However, the FBI had created extremely high-resolution images of every carved symbol using professional archaeological photography techniques, and these images had been preserved in digital format with exceptional clarity and detail. Dr. Torres uploaded the complete photographic record of the stone carvings into ChatGPT, along with contextual information about the family's disappearance, the geological characteristics of the site, astronomical data for the time period when the family vanished, and detailed descriptions of the physical arrangement of the 17 stone formations. She also provided the AI with access to extensive databases of ancient writing systems, mathematical notation traditions, and astronomical observation methods from cultures around the world. The AI's initial analysis was unlike anything human experts had attempted during the original investigation. Instead of trying to match the symbols to existing languages or known historical writing systems, ChatGPT approached the carvings as a complex, multidimensional puzzle that combined mathematical, spatial, temporal, and linguistic elements. The system identified recurring patterns, frequency distributions, and relationships between symbol groups that human analysts had either missed entirely or failed to recognize as significant. Most remarkably, the AI detected that the symbols weren't randomly distributed across the 17 stones, but formed sophisticated three-dimensional mathematical relationships when analyzed as a complete system. The spacing between symbols, their relative sizes, their positions on each boulder, and even the astronomical orientations of the stones themselves were all components of what ChatGPT described as a multi-dimensional instruction set encoded in stone. But ChatGPT's translation suggested that the symbols described precise geographic coordinates, complex mathematical calculations involving celestial mechanics, and what appeared to be detailed instructions for accessing something the AI termed dimensional gateway protocols. The language was archaic but mathematically precise, combining astronomical observations with what seemed like technological specifications that were far advanced beyond what any historical human civilization should have possessed. According to the AI's interpretation, the stones described a location where temporal barriers become permeable during specific celestial alignments, allowing what the ancient carvers called conscious transition between parallel Earth frequencies. In the instructions detailed precise timing requirements, electromagnetic field conditions, and even specific mental preparation techniques required for what the symbols called voluntary dimensional migration. Dr. Torres was initially skeptical of these results, as the AI's interpretation sounded more like science fiction than legitimate archaeological discovery. However, when she cross-referenced the coordinates that ChatGPT had derived from the mathematical symbols, they pointed with pinpoint accuracy to the exact clearing where the Morrison family's footprints had vanished 15 years earlier. The AI had somehow extracted precise geographical data from symbol carvings that human experts had been unable to decode. Even more intriguing, the AI had calculated specific dates and times when these alleged dimensional events were supposed to occur, based on complex astronomical calculations embedded within the symbol system. According to ChatGPT's analysis, July 15, 2009, the exact day after the Morrison family disappeared had been listed as a primary alignment date when conditions would be optimal for what the symbols called frequency resonance events. The scientific community received Dr. Torres's findings with reactions ranging from intense curiosity to outright dismissal. Mainstream archaeologists and linguists criticized the AI's interpretation as sophisticated pattern matching, producing meaningless correlations between unrelated data points. They argued that artificial intelligence systems were capable of finding patterns in any complex data set, regardless of whether those patterns had actual significance or represented random coincidence. However, quantum physicists and theoretical researchers found the mathematical elements of the AI's translation far more intriguing than their colleagues in traditional archaeology. The coordinates and astronomical calculations were mathematically precise and internally consistent, demonstrating a level of sophisticated mathematical knowledge that seemed impossible for any ancient civilization to have possessed. The symbols contained accurate predictions of celestial events, precise geodetic measurements, and complex equations that match principles of advanced physics. Dr. Torres decided to test the AI's predictions empirically rather than continue debating their theoretical validity. ChatGPT had identified the next optimal alignment date as October 31st, 2024, based on the astronomical calculations decoded from the stone symbols. According to the AI's translation, this date would feature the same celestial conditions that had occurred on July 15, 2009, creating what the ancient carvers called maximum frequency resonance potential. Dr. Torres organized a small research expedition to the Morrison disappearance site, bringing electromagnetic detection equipment, seismic monitoring devices, and high-sensitivity recording equipment to document any unusual phenomena that might occur during the predicted alignment event. The expedition team included Dr. Torres herself, 2 graduate students specializing in computational archaeology, a documentary filmmaker interested in recording the experiment, and myself as an observer representing the original criminal investigation. We arrived at the stone formations on October 30th, 2024, and spent the day setting up sophisticated monitoring equipment throughout the clearing and surrounding forest. The electronic instruments detected completely normal electromagnetic readings, seismic activity, and atmospheric conditions. Nothing seemed unusual about the location during daylight hours, except for an almost oppressive silence that seemed to muffle even our whispered conversations and make the forest feel unnaturally isolated from the outside world. As October 31st progressed toward the time period ChatGPT had identified as optimal for frequency resonance events, our monitoring equipment began registering increasingly unusual readings. Electromagnetic field detectors started showing erratic fluctuations beginning around 10 p.m., with readings that spiked and dropped in patterns that didn't correspond to any known natural electromagnetic phenomena. Seismic monitors detected subtle vibrations that seemed to originate from deep underground, despite no geological activity recorded anywhere in the region. The most disturbing anomalies were captured by our high-sensitivity audio recording equipment. Beginning around 11 p.m., sensitive microphones started picking up sounds that human ears couldn't detect, extremely low-frequency pulses that occurred in regular patterns. These sounds didn't match any known natural phenomena, geological processes, or wildlife vocalizations. The frequency patterns were remarkably similar to the mathematical sequences that ChatGPT had identified within the stone symbol system. At exactly 11:47 p.m., our equipment registered readings that defied rational explanation. Electromagnetic field detectors maxed out their measurement scales, indicating energy levels that should have been physically impossible in a natural outdoor environment. Seismic readings spiked, as if a massive earthquake was occurring directly beneath the stone circle, though none of us felt any ground movement or vibration. Digital thermometers showed temperature fluctuations of over 30 degrees within seconds, while atmospheric pressure readings oscillated wildly between extremes. Most extraordinarily, the air itself seemed to become visually distorted around the carved stones, creating shimmering effects similar to heat mirages but occurring in cool mountain air at near-freezing temperatures. The carved symbols appeared to emit a faint luminescence that made them clearly visible despite the complete absence of external light sources. For exactly 13 minutes, the clearing became a focal point for energies and phenomena that challenged every principle of conventional physics and natural science. When the unusual phenomena ceased at exactly midnight, our monitoring equipment returned to completely normal readings, as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. However, something fundamental had changed within the stone circle that became immediately apparent when we examined the area with flashlights. Fresh footprints led from the exact spot where the Morrison family's trail had ended 15 years earlier. But these new prints led away from the stones, heading deeper into the forest in a direction that previous search teams had thoroughly examined. The footprints appeared weathered and old, as if they had been exposed to weather for many years, yet our team was absolutely certain they had not existed before midnight. The prints included shoe patterns that matched the hiking boots worn by the Morrison family members, including smaller prints that corresponded to the children's footwear. Most unsettling was the fact that the prints appeared to lead away from the stone circle rather than toward it, suggesting that something or someone had emerged from the area rather than disappeared into it. Following the newly appeared trail, with a combination of excitement and profound unease, we made a discovery that fundamentally challenged everything we thought we understood about the Morrison family disappearance. Hidden in a small grove approximately half a mile from the stone formations, concealed behind a cluster of fallen trees that had not been disturbed during previous search operations, we found what appeared to be a campsite containing the Morrison family's missing equipment. Sleeping bags, hiking boots, camping cookware, and Robert's professional geological tools were all arranged as if the family had made a temporary camp in this location. But these items showed no signs of 15 years of weather exposure, animal interference, or natural deterioration. They appeared to have been placed there recently, yet forensic analysis would later confirm, through manufacturing markings, wear patterns, and fabric composition, that they were genuine artifacts from 2009. Most haunting of all discoveries was Ellen Morrison's leather-bound notebook, found lying open beside what appeared to have been a small campfire site. The notebook had been weather-protected inside a sealed plastic bag, and its pages remained perfectly preserved. The final entry, written in Ellen's distinctive handwriting and dated July 15, 2009, contained a message that sent chills through every member of our expedition team. The stones were right about everything. We're not lost and we're not dead. We're just somewhere else now, in a place that exists parallel to the world we knew. The children are safe here, and they're growing up in a reality where time moves differently and the natural laws are more flexible than we ever imagined. Don't look for us in your physical world, because we've found something beautiful beyond the frequency barrier that the ancient ones described in their stone instructions. The next alignment will show others the way, but only for those who are ready to understand that reality is far larger than we ever believed possible. The entry continued with detailed descriptions of what Ellen called the other side, describing a reality that seemed identical to our world in most respects, but with subtle differences in natural laws, physical constants, and the relationship between consciousness and matter. She wrote about meeting the ancient civilization that had created the stone symbols, describing them as interdimensional travelers who had established the gateway system to allow movement between parallel versions of Earth. ChatGPT's analysis of the stone symbols had been accurate in ways that challenged everything we thought we knew about reality, consciousness, and the nature of physical existence. The AI had successfully decoded instructions left by an unknown ancient civilization, describing technology or phenomena that could transport people between different dimensional frequencies or parallel versions of our world. The Morrison family hadn't been murdered, kidnapped, or killed in an accident. They had discovered a genuine gateway to somewhere else entirely. The implications of this discovery extend far beyond solving a single missing persons case. The existence of functional interdimensional travel technology suggests that human history may contain gaps and mysteries that can only be explained by acknowledging the presence of civilizations with capabilities far beyond what conventional archaeology and anthropology have recognized. The stone symbol system represents a form of knowledge preservation that has survived for over a millennium, waiting for technology advanced enough to decode its instructions. Dr. Torres continues her work, analyzing other unsolved disappearances near ancient stone formations throughout North America, using ChatGPT and increasingly sophisticated AI systems to search for similar symbol patterns and mathematical relationships. Her preliminary research has identified 17 potential sites across the United States and Canada where unexplained vanishings have occurred in proximity to carved stone markers containing mathematical and astronomical symbols. The FBI has officially closed the Morrison case with a classification of resolved through extraordinary circumstances, though they have classified most details of our October expedition and restricted public access to the stone formation site. Park services have declared the area geologically unstable and potentially dangerous to visitors, effectively preventing independent researchers from conducting their own investigations of the dimensional gateway phenomenon. I have returned to the clearing several times since our October expedition, hoping to understand more about the mechanics of interdimensional travel and the ancient civilization that created this remarkable technology. The stones remain silent during most visits, their symbols weathered but still clearly visible to anyone willing to spend time studying their intricate mathematical relationships. However, local residents continue reporting strange lights and unexplained sounds emanating from the forest during certain astronomical events, suggesting that the gateway remains active under specific conditions. Some visitors claim to hear children's laughter echoing through the forest during dawn and dusk hours, sounds that could easily be explained as wind moving through the trees, wildlife vocalizations, or the psychological power of suggestion. However, others report seeing shadowy figures moving between the carved stones during celestial events, and a few claim to have discovered temporary campsites containing modern equipment that disappears before authorities can investigate the reports. The Morrison case has fundamentally changed how I approach missing persons investigations, particularly those involving unexplained disappearances in areas with unusual geological features or historical significance. The possibility that some missing persons may have discovered interdimensional travel technology rather than meeting conventional fates opens entirely new avenues for investigation and research. More importantly, the successful application of artificial intelligence to decode ancient symbol systems suggests that many historical mysteries may be solvable using computational approaches that were impossible just a few years ago. The combination of AI pattern recognition, vast databases of comparative information, and sophisticated mathematical analysis may be the key to understanding ancient technologies and civilizations that left behind seemingly impossible artifacts and achievements. The Morrison family's story continues in ways we can barely comprehend, in a parallel reality where they remain safe and are apparently thriving, according to Ellen's final message. Their discovery of interdimensional travel represents either the most extraordinary missing persons case in modern history or the beginning of a new understanding of reality itself. Perhaps both interpretations are correct, and the boundaries between missing persons investigations and scientific breakthrough are far more flexible than we have previously recognized. What do you think really happened to the Morrison family? Did they discover genuine dimensional travel, or is there another explanation for these impossible events? Have you ever encountered unexplained stone formations or ancient symbols in remote locations? Share your theories and experiences in the comments below, and if you know of other cases involving ancient stone symbols and mysterious disappearances, I want to hear about them. Subscribe for more investigations into mysteries that challenge everything we think we know about reality, consciousness, and the true nature of our universe.